Hi everyone, this is Diana Drake, and today I'm doing a deep dive on heavy metal toxicity. In today's presentation, I'll be discussing symptoms, identification, and remedies, of course, from a natural perspective. So to jump right into this, metals, first of all, you guys, these are naturally occurring in the crust of the earth. These are in the sediment and in the rocks, and our bodies have been used to binding and eliminating them since humans have been here, right? The problem is that now that we are mining and manufacturing metal products, now our bodies are completely overburdened and we cannot get them out. So what I mean about mining and manufacturing, think of all the metal in all of the bridges around the world and all of the vehicles, cars, and all the car parts and all the barbed wire fences and all of the exterior signage outside that's made of metal. All of these metals over time, they rust, break down, and go back into the soil, which means it's running into our water supply. It's going to lakes and oceans, and it's also going back into the air. It's going into the rain and getting rained back down on us. So we are very overburdened by the heavy metal mining and production of humans. So speaking of it running into the ocean, you guys know that we're avoiding fish because of the heavy metal content, and that happens because of the runoff of metals into the ocean. But also think about all of the ships and the barges that are constantly going to and from all the continents that are just rusting into the oceans. It's kind of disgusting. And it's actually the job of sea kelp to purify metals from the ocean. So kelp is a natural metal purifier. But unfortunately, with the rising pH of the oceans, the kelp is being eliminated. So potential exposure to heavy metals is going to come at us from a few places. First, the air. This could be from indoor dust, paint chips, or just outdoor polluted air. Ladies, cosmetics is a major problem. First of all, any lipstick that is red, it has mercury in it, guaranteed, even if it says it's organic, because in the cosmetics industry, which is very shady, by the way, you are allowed to put the word organic and still have a certain percentage of things not be organic. I think it's like 15%. So you could legally have mercury in a lipstick or in any other cosmetic, and it is in other cosmetics, by the way. It's in mascara, blush, any cosmetic could be potentially contaminated with heavy metals. We have also got multivitamins and herbal medicines that are not properly tested for purity. So this is especially going to affect Ayurvedic medicine, which comes out of India. There have been a lot of instances where heavy metal toxicity is found in Indian herbs. I don't know if this also would go for spices. I would imagine it potentially does, but I do know there's a lot of heavy metal toxicity coming from India, so I just steer clear of things from there in general. Water it's a major one for us. Typically, the most dangerous water contaminant will be lead, and water contributes to 20% of our daily exposure because we're drinking water all day. Even if you're drinking coffee or tea or whatever, if it comes from water and it's going in, it's really important to see what's going on in the water supply, which I will get into next. Okay, so food, especially obviously canned food, right? Or if you're eating foods that were grown in soil that contains high metals from rusted signage, vehicles, farming equipment, even using aluminum foil to barbecue on your, to cover your food or to put in the oven or put on your, cover your food after it's barbecued or something. Even using, pans that are covered in some sort of lining or Teflon, all that stuff potentially has heavy metals in it. A pretty obvious one too would be a home renovation, especially on an older home. And then a huge one is vaccines as well. Those are riddled with heavy metals. Okay, let's go back to the water. Is there lead in your water? You need to know if there is. And the best way to do this is just to have it tested. This should be pretty affordable. You would just take a sample, send it to a local lab, and they will give you a whole rundown on what's in your water. Unfortunately, but not surprisingly, our government legally allow 15 parts per billion of lead in our water. This should be 0. If I offered you a gallon of toxic water but told you that it only had a couple drops of toxins in it, that doesn't mean that it's okay to take it because it's watered down, right? Because the problem is, even if you're just consuming small amounts of toxins in your water, when it's coming day after day after day after day, it builds in the body. So when you get your water test back, anything in the lead department above 0 is a major concern. I'm going to say that again. If you have lead over 0 in your water, so if there is anything in there, this is a major concern for you. You want to look at the age of your home. This might indicate whether it's more likely that you have lead contamination or not. If it was built in the 70s and 80s, you might have a service pipeline that's lead. And even if it's a new home, still somewhere along the line of water coming from the city, there might be lead somewhere. So get it tested as soon as possible. When lead comes into the body, it is deposited and stored in the liver, then the muscles, kidneys, and the brain. Our bones also store lead, and as we age, this can start to kind of leak back out into our bloodstream. So then it's exposed back to our central nervous system. Once it's in our soft tissue, this is when the issues will arise. Also, the gut can leach iron into the blood. Blood metal levels will heighten your chance of a cardiovascular event. So with cardiovascular issues being the #1 killer, it's really important to eliminate heavy metals in the body. 70% of lead comes out of our urine, and 30% will come out in bile, sweat, saliva, and breast milk. And if that little hot word breast milk makes you think, wow, I'm breastfeeding right now, or I'm pregnant right now, or I'm planning to have a baby, I want us as women to understand that our breast is a major detoxification pathway. So if you do not detox your body prior to having a baby, when you breastfeed, you are literally detoxing heavy metals, pesticides, any toxin in your body. You are just giving it to your baby. We are so much toxic, you guys, so much more toxic than we were 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. Think of how much more frequently we're hearing about babies that are sick and childhood cancers, babies dying. I mean, imagine how much of this can be prevented by just making sure that you are properly detoxed before you conceive. Okay, let's talk about symptoms of acute lead toxicity. So acute meaning we're just kind of at the beginning stages here. Your body might start to feel a change, yet you haven't made any major changes to your diet or anything. So if you start to experience any of these things, just kind of take a note. So you might notice a change in your iron levels. Obviously, if you had a blood test, if you had elevated metals in the blood, that would be an indicator. Abdominal pain, constipation, headaches, mood disorders, joint and tissue pain, ADHD and learning disorders, brain swelling, dementia, confusion, and memory loss. Now we're going to move into the symptoms of chronic lead toxicity. So when we're chronic, now we're really getting into disease patterns here. In this stage, you're looking at decreased libido, impotence, infertility, anorexia, abdominal pain, weight loss, a change in bowel habits, muscle weakness and pain, fatigue, depression, irritability, anxiety, insomnia, headaches, bone pain, joint pain, neuropathy, and joint swelling. Now, if you're thinking, oh, I have 1 or 2 symptoms on there, probably not an emergency, but if I just rattled off those symptoms and you're thinking, wow, that really describes me, then we might be looking at lead toxicity here. I do actually want to note a lot of the symptoms of lead toxicity are also similar to mycotoxins toxicity, which would be from mold. I'll be doing another presentation on that But if you just heard all of these symptoms and you go get tested for heavy metal toxicity and there is not any, you want to go into mycotoxin or mold toxicity. Okay, back to heavy metals. How are we going to test for this? I always recommend working with a naturopath or a practitioner. And in this case, you want someone who really understands environmental toxicity. Also, because even to my point that I was just saying, let's say you go get tested for heavy metals and it's not that. You want someone that understands environmental toxicity because they would say, okay, let's go test for this and this and this now. You know, a doctor is probably not the best place to go for this. I don't really think they have an understanding of environmental toxicity. You want to test the blood for lead and mercury levels, and you can actually order your own metal blood labs at ultalabtests.com. If you work with a practitioner, they'll have their own labs that they do it through. You would also want to test the urine. And what's cool about this is you'll get a broad spectrum report. So it will look at the heavy metals that shouldn't be there. But there are also some good minerals and metals that should be in the body that it will get on that test as well. And you can order your own test for that at accessmedicallabs.com. FYI, these are the two labs that I use for both urine and blood testing in my practice. Okay, so the big question is, if you find it, how do you get it out? If you are to the place where you're at chronic toxicity, I definitely recommend chelation IV therapy. So this basically is a series of IVs that you will do, and the chelation will bind to the metals and get them out of your body. You want to work with a clinic that's going to take your labs and administer the IVs, and they're tracking exactly where you're at so they know exactly how many to give you until the metals are already out. And yes, getting these out might not feel very good. You might not feel very well when this is happening, and that's okay. Know that it will pass and you will feel better when everything is out. Infrared saunas are great. If you have one at home, you can do one 3 times a week. And I always recommend doing some sort of internal therapy when you're doing a detox. You want to do something specific for heavy metals, which can be homeopathic and herbal. And then you also want to do some general, kidney, liver, lymph, and bowel detoxing as well. Water filtration is the big one here. You can look into whole home filtration systems. You can look at Aquasana or Pure Effect. A really good water filtration company will be able to look up your zip code and tell you what the worrisome levels of bad things are in the water in your area. And based on that, they can say, okay, we recommend this kind of filter and it needs to be changed however so often. I also like at sink filtration. I love the Kangen, which also ionizes it and raises the pH. If you can't afford a whole home filtration system, I would at least do an at-sink filtration system and a shower and bath filtration. Guys, you can buy, a little shower filter on Amazon for like $30. And I just want to be really clear that fridge water filtration is not enough because there are so many other toxins in our water besides just heavy metals. And even though you're drinking the cleanest water possible, if you're still showering and bathing in toxic water, your body's going to absorb it anyway. Okay, other toxins that are worrisome. Besides the metals, we've got BPA, we have arsenic, which is a metal, chlorine, bromine, fluoride, and DDT and pesticides. This is why it's so important to get a water filter that is really specific to what's going on in your home. Okay, triple media water filtration is suggested, and again, it should be tailored to the highest chemical toxicity per your water test. Chemical exposure, you guys, this is also terrible on your gut. It actually sterilizes the small intestine. So in addition to doing your detoxing, whether it's IVs, cleaning up your water, all that stuff, you also need to address the microbiome. We pretty much know now that the microbiome is kind of the center anyway of when we're healing the body. So you just want to make sure that you're working with someone that understands that you also need to address the microbiome when you're dealing with chemical exposure. Well, thank you guys for listening to my presentation. If you need any help, you can reach me at dmdnaturalmedicine.com. I'm in Colorado, and I do both virtual and in-person appointments. Everyone is entitled to a free 15-minute phone consultation, which you can sign up for at my website. You can also email me to hello@dmdnaturalmedicine.com. Hopefully you found this helpful. Thank you guys again.